and welcome to our podcast, Superpower and Sidekick. I'm Syndicate,
And I'm Kim Ang.
and we're coming together to team up with Spirit to live a life beyond our imagination. This weekend, um, or actually, I think it was Friday, we ended up getting quite a bit more than what we expected from the insurance, is what we were first told that was going to be available for the car that was completely totaled. And we basically took that money and split it down the middle as close as we could. It was within, small enough. They were comparable priced cars, but we took it and bought two rather than one newer one. Anyway, we get this money and I'm looking, I don't know why I thought about Kia Soul. I have never been into Korean cars necessarily. I like Toyota. I'm a big Toyota fan. I call that thing the Toyota tank because it'll just last and keep ticking and keep ticking and keep ticking. It's just, they're awesome cars. But there's other brands I like too. But anyway, I could not get the thought of a Kia Soul out of my mind. Okay. And so I'm looking at all of them and I go to the dealership, and the one that they only had one used on the Kia dealership lot for the Soul, and it was an 18 and they wanted 11 grand for it, which would have been the whole amount of the check. I'm not going to take the whole, Mike's getting one too. That's not fair. And it had 130,000 miles and I'm like, no, I'm not buying with one with that kind of 100,000 I'll get, but nothing much over that. And it was just a strong feeling. I don't want someone's old used piece of junk. I want something decent. And someone that cared for it, someone that took care of it. I always look for one owner vehicles. And I was looking through, and 90% of them had salvage titles. And I was looking at other cars too. I didn't just narrow it down to that. I kept looking for them because I'd felt it, but I'm looking at the whole market. Whatever's the best car within our price range, I'm good. Um, Especially in this market, because this market is whack, absolutely whack. Um, Almost all of them were salvage titles, and I definitely didn't want. I can when I was walking the lots, some guys tried to, and I'm like, that's a salvage title. I can see the different colors of white from here, or there would be a pinstripe on one side, not on the other. I I can see it a mile away. My dad was a car man and he did body work, and he would teach me when you go to buy a used car, you look at all the quarter panels and you make sure that the frame's not bent, different things like that. And so I got my mind. I don't even want to salvage. Forget that. Well, that knocked out 90% of them right off the first day. But they were wanting way more money than what I personally think they're worth. So I kept looking, and there was one down in Roswell, but it's a 3-hour drive, and we've got a lot going on. Everything's been super busy. I'm like, can I give a whole day to go do this? Even though we're having to go to Albuquerque and Santa Fe and look through lots, what's the big? There's no difference. Um, so I was debating it, and we decided, since I put mine on a shelf, I completely just like surrendered. I was like, I don't like what's out there. I'm gonna let it go for a minute and just see what happens. But I'm driving myself crazy because every single car I got in, some of them I got real sick. The stuff that they were using. So it's like, absolutely not. And they opened up a brand new Nissan for me, and I started convulsing. The amount of formaldehyde in a new car, there's literally no way I can do it. I don't even want to get into one, period. I knew I've had so many big formaldehyde exposures that near took me off this planet. Like, no, I got to have one that's outgassed, at least 3 years old. And I think the older I can get with the least amount of miles is going to be the least likely to make me sick. So I've definitely got very specific goals, and it makes things much more limited and hard. And it could have been way too much. But I know I work with Spirit, Superpower and Sidekick. I am the sidekick. So I decided I'm going to shut up and let Spirit take the lead. This isn't working out. And I went and jumped in the shower to get ready to come to Albuquerque. Mike wanted a little Prius. I can't believe Mike wanted a little bitty car, but he couldn't that's the one that he got stuck on, and he couldn't think of anything else. And he was still looking at he likes vans because they're just so multi-purpose. And they're easy to find and cheaper than some cars in actuality, because I guess, it's the mom van and people, whatever. But for him, they really work functionally. So he did have that on his mind too. But Prius had come in, and that's what he wanted to go find. And he had a couple on the list we were going to go look at. And I told him I had some Kias on, but after, I either saw the pine trees that I knew I couldn't get in the scented vehicle, or it was a salvage title. I said, I give up, we're just going to go look at your car today. And I jump in the shower, and I'm in the shower, and I hear very clearly in my head, this man takes care of his cars the exact same way I took care of mine. And I knew it was my father. And I 1000% it was my father. And I went, okay, this car in Roswell is my car. I'd already saw it was a one owner vehicle. It was 106,000 miles. It was only, I don't care. I don't care about money. I don't mean it to be gauche and speak about money, but just about, it was $6,000 car. And it looked brand new. I'm like, okay, well, oh, I remember I put the whole ad on Facebook anyway. It said it's my car. So who cares if people know how much I spent on it? Um, but it was really a heck of a deal. And I'm like, okay, maybe it is worth the drive to Roswell because it fit. And it was also 5 or 6 speed actually, but manual transmission. I live on a very steep little incline that is not well smoothed. It's a dirt road, and it's not the best in the world. And my car wasn't doing great. This little thing climbs it like it's nothing. And it's because it's a stick. So I was wanting that specifically for myself because it made me nervous doing it with an automatic. I'm a country girl. I was raised on a farm, and I like a manual. It's just I'm more comfortable in them, but not if I live in a city because I hate to sit at a stoplight with my foot on the clutch. I'll take it out of gear. I'm not going to do that. But anyway, so we go to Albuquerque, or I get a hold of the guy and I set it up for the next morning. And whenever I see him, whenever I set it up, I look at his Facebook, and I actually felt a huge like energetic exchange. And it's a phenomenon that's hard to describe, but I've had it in different ways all over the world, or while I was traveling all over the world. And it's that, oh, there's your next step, oh, there's your next step. I think there's a movie, Celestine Prophecy. They did it in a book and they did it in a movie, and they actually talk about that phenomenon, and they can explain it a lot better than I can. But it has worked for me forever. And I had it, and it was very strong, and I had no doubt, okay, I don't even need to think about it, that's my car. We went into Albuquerque, and the first place we went to, the one that he looked in, but nobody was answering him. And for some reason, he felt like he needed to hurry. Well, it's a good thing he bought that car because he wouldn't have had a car to go to. He didn't know he was going to film. He ended up getting a email from, anyway, and he got an opportunity that he has to drive for right after buying the car that he didn't know he was going to have. So it's already paid off, and he didn't realize that before. So, but we go up, and even though it's at a lot, the guy had just bought it from a gentleman that had passed away from the family, but it had been a one owner car, sat in the garage the whole time and loved. And it was 2004. So there, 2016, 2004, but he still spent 5 grand on his. So they were very comparable size, money wise, even though they were a few years apart, 12 years. That's also the difference between the two markets is too, and just the craziness that's going on in the world. And Toyota's not just hold their value; they many times go up, depending. Um, but he was thrilled. He drove it home from Albuquerque, and it was like 65 miles per gallon on the way home. He was like being real. My dad used to do that in my Camry hybrid. He would see how little a gas he could sip to come all the way to St. Louis and see me from New Mexico. And it was like a little game he played. And Mike played that, and he got like this supreme. when he, so the next morning we get up, and he drives me in his new little car, and we go to Roswell to pick up the car. He got like 47 miles to the gallon for that. He didn't take it quite so easy. And we pull up, and the guy is standing. We're just pull up to the Target. That's where we met at. And the guy's standing by the car, and I immediately come over, And I go to get in the car. Oh, shoot. I wish I'd have brought it in. And there was a small little black rubber duck with, orange beak sitting on the dashboard of the car. And it did not hit. I don't believe how dense I am sometimes. It was the drive home halfway through after I'd already bought the car, and I realized my dad collected ducks and that it was sure. My dad loved this duck. It is a very ancient decoy that he did use as he was a child to duck hunt. And for some reason, he loved this one piece. Now, my mom bought a couple of them when they were married, and he got them in the divorce. So he had like three of them, but my brother got those two. And then his girlfriends, my dad was a little bit of a ladies' man. All of his girlfriends always bought him ducks, his birthday or Christmas or anything else. So he ended up, and he did not hoard. His house was always pristine. You didn't see anything out of place, and it was clean. It was to the baseboards clean, not like most bachelors you might meet. But there would be these little odd ducks, like a rubber duck set up on his bar with all of his glasses. It would just be oddly out of place, this little rubber duck. Or like his fireplace stuff, the metal brass shovel and everything had a duck on top of it because his grandmother had bought him and she didn't know it. Oh well, he likes ducks. Bought him a duck. Um, and the ducks grew. So it was 100% a sure sign about my father. And I get there and I'm so excited, kind of nervous. I tell the guy I'm psychic and I'm here because my dad said that you take care of your cars better than he did. And he blushed and like, I do. And you could tell he was like almost touched, like, oh, thank you for seeing me, whoever you are on the other side of the veil. I mean, he even gave us, it needs brakes and rotors, and they were brand new sitting in the trunk ready to be installed. So he gave us the part it needed because he felt bad. He was selling it to us and it needed that. That's that's how, yeah. It was obviously completely made for me. And it had a weird fragrance. So I wore a mask when I test drove it. And I'm like, oh, this thing is solid. I could tell it, you can tell when you drive a car, and it was solid. And I get back and we go to get, and Mike's like, well, maybe I should drive the Kia since it's got a scent. We'll go ahead and get it. A friend of mine had kind of stopped me the day before and said, just because it has a smell, first off, you don't know if it's one that gets you. Second off, if it hadn't been in the life of the car, if it's not Febreze, if it's not those little Glade plugins, something, if it's just one detail, you can probably get it out. And that's, anyway, I chose because Mike's car was fine until he turned on a heater, and the filter in there have to be changed. There was something in it, and I was ready to jump out of the car when he turned it on. So I actually made the executive decision I was going to drive my car home, even though it was scented, and if I had a migraine, I had a migraine. But I'm taking my car home. I am so glad I did that because whatever it's scented with, it hasn't affected me at all. I can still smell it, and it's kind of annoying that it's there because it doesn't seem right, but I can tell the difference between natural and unnatural. And this one somehow or another kind of, it doesn't burn when it goes in, but it does kind of smell like the ones that aren't good. I'm thinking it was actually the mother's, and she had two children in car seats. I'm thinking she cleans with something that was natural because of her children in the car. That's actually what I think may have happened because you could tell the car seats had some stuff, and you can tell she kept it clean. I know how to detail, so I got it home and I got all of it out. But with my stuff, it looked brand new by the time I finished everything. There was another sign of, the whole Roswell thing. So I get home and I share with my two older kids about the duck, and they both, like, I didn't have to say one word. I said, I got in the car to test drive it, and I sent the picture of the duck. And they both came back, oh my God, that's amazing. They knew grandpa right away. And that man hung the moon for them. They love him. And my youngest daughter's she's too young. She didn't know what the reference was. But Anyway, when I was talking to them, oh no, actually, it was Summer's best friend started texting me and said that she had tried to talk to her mom while she was shopping for some clothes, but her mom ignored her. It was just their thing, and she was just sharing it. And she said, because the mom was not into that. And I start sharing that when Callie Dawn, when my oldest daughter started, when she started kindergarten, she came home the first day. We live in a small town, and the only place we really had to shop was Walmart. I had bought her all new clothes and little dresses for the first day of school. And she came home, 5 of her friends in school had the exact same dress, and she loved it. She thought it was, in fact, to this day, she's so matchy matchy. She likes to match her boys and her husband. It's really cute. It's adorable. So to her, it was great. But my dad, for some reason, I don't know why he was there that day. He was just visiting, I guess, because we didn't live in the same town. He heard her and he goes, he saw a projected future problem. And he made a deal with us that he was going to buy her clothes every year for school. All we had to do was meet him in Roswell to go shopping, because we lived up in Ruidoso in the mountains, and my dad lived in the flatlands down in Clovis, New Mexico, and Roswell, New Mexico, the alien country, was smack dab between those two towns. I just got huge angel rings, huge angel. They're still going on in my ears. And anyway, so it became not just that, but we would meet, and whatever money I got, my dad would match for me, and we would go Christmas shopping for them. It became the place that we met to go shopping for the kids. One year I went to go Christmas shopping with them, and he took me to the closest truck stop to have breakfast. And he slams his hand down on the table and he goes, "We're not Christmas shopping this year. We're not buying any trampoline or anything like that for the kids." And I'm like, I'm not ready myself. Don't tell me what I'm gonna do. And he says, "We're gonna pull our money and we're gonna buy you guys your first home computer." It was 1994, three or four. Callie was 5, so I'm thinking it's and it was she was born anyway, it was 93 or 94. And they were not a normal thing yet. They'd barely hit the homes. They were not common in homes yet. It was kind of like when the TV first came out. Not everyone had one. And I slammed my fist on the table and said, "I am computer illiterate and I'm proud of it. And I don't want a computer." And he backed up and said, "Cinda, that's not fair for your children that are coming into the age of computers and electronics. If they do not know how to use this, it's going to limit them in their abilities to move into this new world." And he said, you must have a computer for your house, or and just you're going to learn it. It's okay." He said, "Not only that, I really want one. So you've got to learn how to do it so you can help me." Well, you know what I ended up doing with that computer expertise. That's partly how I got around the planet, because I did it more or less, I did it to support a spiritual organization, but it also supported me to be there to do it. So it was a doorway into a world, and I didn't have any clue of that at the time. And look at us, what are we doing right now? And he always had that kind of foresight. He was always, and he was way ahead. People did not know that they were coming yet, but he knew. So the whole even having to go to Roswell to pick up the car, that was, and I don't always get it in that moment, those synchronicities. And sometimes it takes me 24 hours to snap. When Summer Rain was born, Mike and I had met at the Rainbow Gathering, and we'd gone to level 7 in Florida. I think you were at that one. Um, and do you remember, I was with Davude and Big Bird from Holland. They had a rental car, and they wanted to give it back because so many Americans were there and we had our cars, so they didn't need them. So they asked me to follow them to Miami, drop off the car, and go back to West Palm Beach. And we were driving back, and I had stopped. It was Thanksgiving Day. I had stopped, and we had all had a big Thanksgiving dinner. So driving back, Big Bird had fallen asleep in the back seat from the tryptophan in the turkey. And Davude and I were driving on the freeway coming back from Miami into West Palm Beach, and there was a slight rainstorm, and a rainbow completely formed in front of us on the highway, and it was touching the highway in front of us. And we drove through it, and I saw every color of the rainbow. All of, and the dude screaming, waking up the other guy. You gotta wake up! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! You know, really big deal. And I found 3 days later I was pregnant with summer rain. So I'm, you know, energetically, I was given that I needed to name her Summer Rain. I was even resistance at first because there's an author that has a similar name, and I didn't want to, but it was too strong. I had to do it, so I did. And we went to St. Louis for a class at the 7 Plus. You remember the really hot hotel that the air conditioner broke because it was the week before they brought the planes in, or they made it into a runway after that. Anyway, but the first week we were in AC, but I brought Summer to it, and she was 3 weeks old, and we went into Lumendang's actual hotel room, not with everyone, and there was thousands there. I think there's 700, maybe 800 there. And anyway, we went in there with the baby, and when we walked in, Summer was like a normal baby, kind of. When we walked out, she looked you in the eye. It was a noticeable change, and he sent her energy while we were in there. And Mike asked him, Lumendang, would you please give Summer a Vietnamese name? And he looks at Mike like, you're crazy. Why do you even want that? And then he goes, okay, yeah. You could tell he understood. It kind of came to him why Mike wanted to do it. And he started doing this. Okay. And then he goes, Anjung. Do you like Anjung? Anjung. And Trung was in the room with us, and we had no idea what it means. And he wrote it down for us and put light of the sun, that it meant light of the sun. It was 24 hours later, the next day, it was like at lunchtime, it hit me. What do you get when you mix a summer rain with the light of the sun?
A rainbow.
Yep. Synchronicities, they're subtle, but they're there. And they're not so subtle. Sometimes they're billboards. And that's a thing, though, when we're learning how to have that faith and that trust and following our own spirit's lead, it does put it up for us to help it. And the more that we recognize it, the more it happens, and it comes together more and more and more. You learn how to do it, or it shows you how to do it.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience when I bought my car too. I mean, there's like a lot out there that you got to sift through.
Yeah.
Many were overpriced, so I did my research.
It is so overpriced out there right now.
Yeah. So I did my research and I know exactly how much the car that I wanted should cost.
Right.
And so yeah, so there were, a lot of guys who saw me and like, just a girl going in to a dealer. She doesn't know what she's talking about. So yeah, I had to turn down a few car offers because they were not in the price range that I wanted. And then, days later they call me back. Oh yeah, we can give it to you, but no, too late.
I had some of this, people trying to pass it off, and I went, it's da 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 da, and they're like, how did she know that?
Yeah, yeah. But when the right car came along,
You knew
I
it.
I I knew it. I knew it. And as soon as I met the sales guy and I shook his hand, I'm like,
Did
yeah,
you
it's
feel
a
that?
done deal. It's
Yeah.
a done deal.
You don't even need to drive it. You don't even
Yeah.
just give me my car. I'm out of here. This is it. In fact, I texted the man after I left and said, hey, just let your wife know I'm ready for her car in a couple of years when you guys.
Nice. Have it all lined up.
She's driving a Subaru Forester. That's what she got brand new. So, let's see, she had this one 8 years, but she kept it like brand new. So even though I cannot have a brand new car, it was like I got a brand new car to me because of my situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and the car I got was a one owner too, and he actually worked for the dealer. And
See,
so
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a Toyota, and it
You
was
know it
only
was
a
serviced and everything else because when they worked there, my stepfather worked for Ford, and he always had a car, and it was always kept in pretty pristine condition.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really good deal. So I didn't even bother to bargain. It's like
But
why?
Mike tried on his, and the guy said, "No, I already put it on base level," you know? And when I got my Kia, we'd already gotten the money out of the bank, and I just handed it straight to him and said, "Count it. It's stinky. I didn't double check after she gave it to me," you know, because money is very fragranced. And so I just handed it to him. I didn't try to take him off anything. It was I knew it was my car. I knew he had a fair price on it because I had seen everybody else's, and maybe he made it fair because he wasn't in Albuquerque. I did have to drive a little bit, but I'm good with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is all about synchronicity. And I think that I was getting frustrated because I couldn't find one that was right.
I remember talking to you about that time, I think. Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I was just frustrated. And then yeah, it was like, okay, I give up.
I know how this works. Wait a minute. I'm trying to force something. I need to let this
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. And then the moment I let go, it's like, oh, my car just shows up on the website the next day. And it's like, oop. And then
And
I
my
got that
apologies.
hit. I
It's
got that hit.
amazing how much surrender is a part of synchronicity and following spirit and taking it out of the intellectual side of our brain and, well, bringing them all together, actually. So that way they're not in dichotomy. Because otherwise, almost all the time, we're actually in dichotomy and don't realize it. And that actually can keep us from what's right in front of us.
Yeah, it really is amazing how that works. It's like the moment you surrender and you let go of trying to force something to
And make
happen,
something happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like banging your head against the wall.
And you accept the here and now at that moment. You accept where you are and you accept, I don't know what to do, and let it go.
Yeah. Yep.
And then boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
But you can't, you think about it like that and you bring it in like that. You can't create it like that.
Yeah, you can't. You really
Because
can't.
if you hold that expectation when you let it go and surrender, you're
Yep.
still in the way. Somehow or
Yes.
another, you've still got in your own path.
Yes. Well said. You are always your problem. You're
Me,
the
I'm
problem.
the problem.
You
It's
are the
me.
problem.
It's me. But anyway, we're all celebrating. Look at all us here. We got new vehicles for us. Yay. You too, all
Yay.
of us.
Yeah.
You're within a few months, so it's still
Yeah.
applicable. And I don't mind making a public service announcement. If you are in any kind of an accident and you are hurt and it's not your fault, I don't care if it's through your insurance or not. If you've got uninsured motorist or if it's liability, go after it and get a lawyer because the insurance companies will do anything to keep you out of the money that you are actually supposed to receive. I don't care if you pay them, they are not working for you. And don't get me wrong, I actually kind of like my insurance company, but not for that. And this, we hired an all female law firm in Albuquerque, and wow, these women have their power back, and they know what they're doing, and they're getting a good paycheck, but they have helped us tremendously. I someone and that you know what that's why we're talking about it because that was a synchronicity. I had a heads up that the person I was working with for this accident didn't have our best interest at heart and that I needed help. And I had that intuitive knowing, and it came in several different ways to confirm. So that way I'm not in dichotomy and just worried that I'm messing with my own head or something. There was enough signs. I knew I was not in the right place and that I needed to have assistance. And it was just by chance that this girlfriend in Albuquerque had it's because she had been in a similar incidents actually, and she saw me and went, "Ooh, she needs a little help." And so she reached out to me and sent me that. So it was a little bit later, and I was talking to Mike, and I'm like, "Whoa, we are being led here." And there was and I just got the angel ring again. And I also think it's because of the work that I've been doing for the last 7 years to renegotiate our experience, get a clean slate, and start us over again. And I had a turnaround in myself where I found my own self value and my own self worth. And I knew I was putting up with something that I should not in my whole life, even what I had created, all of it, not pointing the finger necessarily. But our relationship wasn't healthy, a lot of different things, and it could be tweaked. And more importantly, I got into the witness zone and saw that my partner was just as conditioned as I was, just on the opposite side of it. So rather than it becoming a blame game, became more of how do we solve this riddle? And at the time, I was told we were able to move from one era to the next, depending on how much we cleared out, because the new that's coming in is so big that we had to provide plenty of room. So feng shui, queen of air, clean the air. So that was our thoughts. And I also knew it was within our, fears keep us from our own life. Um, and when I was in that conditioned state and through some of the trauma that I went through, and I got stuck in that, even though I had worked years to come out of it, and I really did not see the progress until I found my own self worth, and then everything. But I feel like this last weekend is like, okay, you can go forward now. I was having Tom Petty for 7 years. The waiting is the hardest part, but it's not time. At the very beginning of it, when I knew, oh, wait a minute, we're making something, this is big. And I begged to go forward. And I heard, if you move forward now, Mike won't make the cut. And I backed up and I went back in that witness. And even though it was very difficult in some ways because I was in a difficult situation, the waiting was really difficult in some ways. I was in the van down by the river. The bridge was right behind me. Couldn't even stay in my own house at the time because of it was too close to the road and exhaust was coming through the window. So I was staying in a bus and it was difficult. But now that it's all starting to line, when I was driving back from Roswell, though, I had a very clear message. All these wonderful, we've just moved into our home. We got some vehicles. We're back. I know. Okay, we're moving forward. It's no longer that stuck waiting. Waiting's the hardest part, but there's a tarot card. It's Seven of Earth, and it means you have planted the seeds, but you have to wait for harvest. It's not that same day. And that is very true when working with spirit, especially because so often the picture is beyond your imagination. So you can't even scope it anyway. Um, but anyway, driving back from Walsall, I got a very clear message. None of this is even the change. This is still just the preparation for. And I
Mhm.
say that though, knowing that it's not just me. There's a global humanity thing in this.
Collective consciousness
It's
rising.
it's there's no stopping it now. Too many of us have seen beyond the veil. There's no way. They can't burn us all. They can't hang us all. There's too many of us here right now. As difficult as Tom Petty's "The Waiting" is the hardest part, they also gave me a song of his, "Something Good Is Coming," and it is also a Nako song, "Black as Night," and it's also basically the same line, "Something good is coming." That I had planted a seed, and there's more to be revealed. I still get that. There's still more to be revealed. I think that's the funnest part about working with spirit. It is that journey, not just the destination. every every little, that sometimes I almost feel like it's a savage, it's not a savage, scavenger hunt,
Hmm.
because it's like finding the little breadcrumbs and then following them, and it's so fun.
It's only fun when you realize it.
And
Not when
even
you get
during
in the
it,
way. When you get in the
sometimes
way, then it's not fun.
sometimes it can be a severe challenge as well. But I try to remember that all of our challenges is to help us to expand and upgrade our abilities so we can move up to that next level of our life. I was with my voice teacher today and she was just making some comments about how good it was to be with her. And I have some similar, we it plays well, and apparently she's getting as much out of it as I am, and I'm getting tons. She's helped me tons. So we've decided today I'm actually a songwriter, which is kind of, it was shocking at the moment, but at the same time, it's like, oh, wait a minute, that actually might make sense, even though it's so far from me. It's channeling. I can channel. There's been several times lately that I was sharing stuff with Mike, and he's like, Cinda, that first 4 paragraphs of what you wrote was downright poetic. And I'm like, well, the rest of it was practical, so it all had meaning. Um, but I've been having a lot of revelations and ahas the last few weeks.
Yeah.
So
Well, that wouldn't surprise me because if you're channeling that into songs, I mean, just, you know how it is when you listen to music or you listen to certain lyrics,
I mean, it can move
it
you.
just moves you, right? Moves you to
But
tears.
I think it was like my fourth or fifth session, and she actually, I don't sing all of them because I really had, I had big fear of microphones when I first started with her. Not fear of, it just, there was a lot of blockage from pretty severe trauma. And but I really was, somehow or another, one day I was able to belt something out and just let it out, and I felt the energy of it come back, and I felt the whole frequency of it. And Lumen Dane came to my mind in his karaoke, like that. And it's like, how are you going to transfer the energy if you don't get over yourself and start singing? Because there's some energy that only goes through music and lyric, and
Yeah,
through that opening up. There's something about music opening us up from the inside out.
definitely. I know when I was listening to the, that Lady Gaga, Bradley Cooper, A Star is
I
Born,
know.
that entire soundtrack is pure gold. I
There's
mean,
a few of them that touch me to the core.
yes,
You sent me
yes,
the CD. I have it in there. Or yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
And I don't even think
definitely,
that, I think what we felt on that still hasn't fully played off either, but we felt it energetically, and there's a knowing in there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, you know, yeah, you just, sometimes you don't know. You just, I can say a little bit that Mike is filming on a movie, and he didn't ever think he was ever going to do that. I can say that much. So right now, it was never in his mind at all. The way that this came across was like, yeah, it had to be synchronistic. And the funny thing is he has a certain look, and apparently it's working for him. And he fits a certain character. He really kind of does. I can see him taking it and running with it. There's another guy who's completely different energy and flavor than Mike, and he's having a blast at it. So I would love to see Mike have fun. I think it's okay for all of us to go after our dreams. They don't have to be bigger than what we can imagine.
So has he always wanted to be an actor?
No, he's never even thought about it. It's never even crossed his mind. He was thinking really small. I really don't want to do plumbing, but I'm going to so we can eat. The difference between toiling and manifestation. And I'm not saying either. I think both of them. I mean, I'll hustle to make sure my kids are fed. And I've painted houses. I worked in the theater for years. I was a hairdresser for a very long time. I worked in women's retail. It's like, okay, my child's hungry. I'm gonna go work.
Well, and that's the thing is that, when we think small, but spirit is the one that thinks
It can be
big.
so much more.
Yeah.
We have we've been conditioned out of our imagination, and we've got to bring back our imagination, and also open doors that it can go beyond our imagination, that we don't have to get stuck into a box because somebody told us we're stuck in a physical box. There is multidimensional realities. We can get help, and we can create multidimensionally, which is a whole nother concept. Why should we go over and argue about the last piece of pie when we know how to go in and create the best pie that's ever been made? There's no reason to get stuck on that old stale piece that everyone's all fighting over. We are the creators. That's that's kind of the latent ability that so many of us don't fully realize.
And a
And at
lot
the
of
same
that is the fear, right? The fear of, oh, I can't do it, or like, this is my dream, but I don't know how to go about doing it.
there's something that you just did when you said that, and it's a perfect, beautiful example of dichotomy, where one side of our brain argues against the other side. And most of us do get stuck in that space, and including myself, I absolutely have. I did a lot of work just on my inner voice and how I talk to myself so I wouldn't stop myself through dichotomy and perfectionism and wanting to do it right. Okay, I'll share a story. How silly, Cinda. And how we can be triggered into those little places in ourselves sometimes rather easily, no matter how much work we've done. Sometimes it takes a minute to get it to stick and integrate and thoroughly. And we have to love ourselves through the triggers too. But we leave with my new little car, and the guy had explained to me at the time that he could only find one of the keys, and he's really sorry, but he's going to search for it and put it in the mail the second he finds it. And I'm like, oh, totally. I understand, man. I'm not sure I know where both my old keys are right now. I get it. And I don't really think anything about it. And we go have lunch, a place we ended up not going to because we opened the door and it was heavily perfumed. Um, but we were in the parking lot, and I have driven a car with a button for 13 years. Do you know what I did? I left my key in the car in the because I'm used to never even having to take my keys out of the car because it's one of those auto. This is a manual transmission and everything else. Those these that doesn't work on this car. You have to have a real key. And because I had a button and didn't have to deal with a key at all, it just stays in a little locked place in my purse. I didn't even think about it. I had my car 5 minutes and I locked the key in it. And immediately I went, I'm a horrible person. Look how I messed up. I wasn't perfect. How dare I? And and then I think, okay, wait a minute, maybe this will be incentive to the key. So I said, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna text the old owner, and I tell him what I did, and I just kind of laugh at myself. And I said, I said maybe this is incentive. It can show up now, maybe. And ask him about it. And I went ahead and called a locksmith just in case, because I'm not going to break my window out. I don't care what Mike's thinking. And anyway, it's like $60 or something like that. I said, well, hold on, because we're looking at options. Just a minute. I just needed to get a price to see if I end up having to do it. And then Mike's like, Cinda, we looked it up on Facebook, and he said, or not Facebook, YouTube. And he goes, Cinda, they use the exact same things that the firemen use. We have one down at a fire station. He said, there's a fire station 3 blocks away. Let me drive over there and ask them if they have one of these kits and just tell them what happened. And he has his fireman stuff and all that. So he's got the accreditation. And, it would be just, I'm going to go steal this car. Anyway, so he takes off literally as soon because he's on the road in front of me. I get a phone call from the owner. Oh my God. Or I got a text. I found the key. You're in Cattle Baron parking lot. I'm on the way. And so I call Mike and I said, hey, we've got the key. Come back. And as soon as it all hit me, it's like, my dad's still at work. He really didn't want me to, because it didn't just have the key. It does have the fob. And we know that those fobs are not cheap. And he's like, and that I might lock my key in the car, so it might be a good idea to put an extra in my purse for a little bit. But it ended up, even though I triggered and I went into, oh, I'm horrible humanity for a moment, it was actually genius and it worked out perfect. And it was also part of the synchronicity. I saw it clear as day. And the guy he was so happy he found the key. And he enjoyed our whole thing. I think he had as much fun as I did.
Well, that's a good lesson not to beat ourselves up when we make a mistake.
That's when I had a little just a small debate with someone, a friend on Facebook, and she was talking about Satan and, well, doesn't all bad thoughts come from Satan? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I just have a completely different understanding of this. Though I honor and value your understanding, mine is I have a different interpretation. And it's somewhere along the line she said something about oh shoot, I lost it. Darn, I hate when that happens because it was kind of an important thought. Um, because I keep saying people talking about embrace your shadow side, embrace the dark side is what, you know, and she puts it, you're like you're going to end up being Darth Vader or something. And Mike and I, there's some truth to all that too. I'm not, you know, there absolutely is. But what I had to explain to her whenever I say embrace the shadow, and I read it back completely different, I said, embrace your humanity, that you're not perfect and you're going to make mistakes, and love yourself through. Even if you do, even if you trigger after doing it, it's still, you can come out of it 10 times faster if you have a nurturing thought about your own self. And that insecurity that comes up, look at that as your 3-year old, and they need a little nurturing and comfort. You know, you just give yourself a little hug. Sometimes life is not easy. We didn't get a manual. I talked to my son for his 39th birthday the other day. I have a 39-year-old son. But anyway, and he goes, Mom, I really thought when I was a kid, you and Dad had it all figured out. I didn't know you were winging it too. Yes, sir. I'm you know what? We're talking 39 years here later, and I'm still totally winging it. I'm just doing the best I can. That's we don't and even if we had manuals, that was probably for the 1950s. It's not going to work for the 2024 regardless, because everything's on nuts. Nothing is up and down and left and right and horizontal and vertical anymore. It's all, and that's something I try to tell people, that sometimes we have to reinvent our life, that all the things that we had planned, if I could still be a hairdresser, I'm good, but I can't do that anymore. And that block, I had to learn a new way. And I've had that, and that's just it though. I think a lot of us are living used to, one person got it. My dad had well, two jobs, but because he was a farmer and a railroader. But when he left farming, he went to railroading, and that's what he did until he passed. And that was normal for their day. Nowadays, people are living several lifetimes, changing career and taking new directions. And, and then a pandemic happens, and then everyone gets to stop. Even though, thanks to the sensitivities and the chemical sensitivities, I had done that 2 or 3 years prior to everybody else.
Well, I feel like it's about finding what you love and what makes you feel inspired every day, right?
I think that's, I was perfect. I had a conversation today or yesterday, I think it was yesterday, about Mike's accident. And I know, I was working at the community garden last night, and the chief there was there, and a few other people that know Mike, and we were all just talking. And I was like, Mike was completely miserable before he had that severe accident. Almost, he had to face death twice. We're very lucky he's still here. But he's like, well, maybe I need to try something different. And he's coming back out with a new perspective, and he's already doing something way beyond his, he wouldn't have even thought about it 2 weeks ago, I don't think. Another way to put it, like when you move, you can take your fishing rod out of, and you've been catching the same fish for decade after decade after decade, but your life changes and you shift and you move to somewhere else, you start catching all new fish. Kim's contemplating.
Well, because I saw something the other day, a phrase that said something like, you could be driving the nicest car in the world, but if you're going to a work that you hate, then that's really not a sign of
Then what are you
success at
doing it
all.
for?
Yeah, yeah. So really, you got to do it for yourself and what makes you happy. Take a
You know,
leap.
take a leap. And there is also, my father worked railroad and he hated it. But he also told me all the time, but it affords me the life I want because he could make, and he knew for his abilities and everything else. Like, he was had a seniority before he quit or before he retired, so he was on the top of. And railroaders, pretty good job. They pay you for such a horrible job, and he made that choice, and but he made the best of it. So sometimes it's perspective too, because he decided to do that because he could do things that he wouldn't be able to do without it. I had a talk with Mike. He didn't get all of his tools, and my friend that manages it got a hold of me today and said, "Cinda, I'm afraid someone might be eyeballing his tools." So her and I ran over there and we got some of the valuable things today. And I texted him. I said, "Honey, it's the last thing over there, but it's really the first thing that should come." I've always been taught whatever it is that you can make money with, you need to bring it with you. So even though I love synchronicity and I love taking the jump, I'm still willing to be practical and hustle too. And I've noticed in my life, I balance between the two because sometimes that's necessary too. But absolutely, you can absolutely reinvent anytime you so choose. That's the cool thing about a leap is we usually jump into a net, not realizing it. That's the synchronistic net. It just forms, when you finally go, okay, I've had enough. I'm taking the leap. It's time. Almost always there's this like beautiful net. And you just get to bounce and it's so fun.
I saw a quote of Mr. Rogers that said, if you're don't worry if you're at the end of something because you're actually at the beginning of something else. So,
I love
yeah.
that analogy and it's perfect for the message I've been getting that as humanity, we're working on that. Yeah. I think this whole Scorpio full moon that just happened, and there's some kind of I'm not an astrologer, but I do get messages, and I can't remember if it's Jupiter. There's some conjunct that's like super important. I have to go look it up. But there's several. I'll get these little highlights. Like I heard about it several years ago, but it was a highlight. Like that's an important moment. And a lot of times they use eclipses. We had a lot of people pass this last eclipse. We had someone that we all love that passed this eclipse, and then I lost my mentor, lifelong friend. She was in late 80s. I mean, it's not necessarily unusual, but I lost her 2022 May 5th during an eclipse, or that was her birthday. Anyway, no, her birthday's anyway. It was after her birthday, but a lot of the lights to humanity go on these astrological times because once we crash over to the veil, we can go from 70% love to 100% love. We don't have all the limitations like what we do in a body. And I think a lot of times it's because these are huge turning points for humanity and they go to the other side to assist and help. There's more capacity. So these sages and mentors, and a lot of times you'll see them leave at astrological certain times.
So if something ends, it's not the end. It's the
Ever.
beginning of something else.
This last week was so fun playing with my dad. My dad and I talked for years. When I was traveling, he was watching um, Ancient Aliens, and I had never really watched the show until after I quit traveling. So it was after he died. I
What show?
watched Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, which is kind of funny. It's a funny show, I think, because they only talk about, I don't know. It's one sided, but some of it's okay. Some of it's good. And some of it's really good. They'll have these moments. And my dad was like addicted to it when I was traveling. I didn't get that he understood some of what I was doing until I watched it. And he would talk to, because my dad had a problem with organized religion. He didn't trust people that could do anything they wanted and then go get um, everything absolved on Sunday morning. He had some bad run-ins with people who presented themselves as a certain morality and integrity, and they didn't come out to be who they presented themselves to. And he had some pretty really strong feelings on the subject. So when I got into spirituality, rather than my mom put me down, oh, you're holy roller, she hated it. My dad's like, oh, ancient aliens. And I'm like, well, multidimensional beings, okay. I'm down. And we were able to come into somewhere in the middle and really enjoy the conversation. And we did for years. And I didn't realize till after he died, I'm like, oh my gosh. Because a lot of the Ancient Aliens has stuff about a lot of the locations I was going to. And I had no clue about that. So it was kind of funny. And but towards the end, because of course he was cancer and terminal and we knew it, we talked about it openly. And he goes, well, I think we just go to sleep and that's it. And we just get to rest and it's over. And I said, well, I've had so many people contact me from the other side of the veil. I'm going to say we do not exist, just our physical body does, but that our light keeps going on forever and ever and ever. And he's like, darn, I don't want to have to come back. And we made a deal. And it was a joking deal, but very serious at the same time, that if I was right and he was wrong, he would make sure and play with me from the other side so that way I would know. Believe me, whenever I saw that duck in the front of my new car, that I knew I'd gotten a spiritual message from him. And it's been 13 years since he's passed. So, and at the time, we were doing that spiritual classes, and remember that was pretty well frowned on too. There's so much help there. I am not going to deny any of it. If I, the difference is spirit really helped me to learn, even when an spiritual being has my best interest at heart or not, human or non-human, and I'm getting really clear on that. Not saying I couldn't be vulnerable and gullible tomorrow, but I'm getting way better at seeing the signs. If somebody can hold my best interest or not. And we should work with people who hold our best interest at heart, not just theirs. Bosses, family members, romantic partners, even our children. It's just a mutual respect. Worshipping doesn't serve anybody. If you were worshiping any other human being, a lot of people that are canceled right now, it's because unfortunately they were put on a pedestal and worshiped. If we see everyone as human, and even humans can be divine and channel, I want everyone to know I'm as human as they come. And I'm gonna make a mistake. I don't want to be on anyone's pedestal. And Lumen Dang was clear about that, and people still put him on the pedestal. And I understand why. If you find your salvation in what you finally find that love from the divine that you thought you were separated from, it's real easy to go, oh, thank you, I love you. But we have to watch it, because we need to remember that came from the divine. It didn't come through that person. That person just helped us to find it. And if we deitize them and put them up on this pedestal, then they might make a mistake, and then you hate them and cancel them, and then kill the message. But the message that came through can be pure, even if the human that delivered it may not be. I have an ability to channel, but I definitely make it very clear. Sometimes what comes through is like, whoa, but I'm very clear that I'm sitting on the floor. I don't want to be pushed over. I have got so many things I'm still working on, and I could hurt someone tomorrow, and I sure wouldn't want to, but it happens. Intent isn't always equal to delivery. You can intend one thing and it could hit someone's trigger completely the wrong way, even if you don't do it on purpose. So I think we all have to stay humble and, you know, uh, brave space, because there is no such thing as safe space. But we can absolutely, we can try to not trigger anybody into fight or flight, because it's not fun. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us for our podcast today. We appreciate anybody who might watch us. And if you have any questions or want to throw anything into the conversation, I'm on all the social media. If you would like an appointment with me, because I do readings, it's at syndicate.com.